We have this session starting on NIAB Best Practices Seminar Series on Agribusiness Marketing. Apart from all of us here in ICRISAT, we have been joined by BPD units across India. As far as the information that I have, we have CPRS, IAHR, CCS HAU, IVRI, and I think CFET is also joining us. Yep. So welcome to all of the BPD units also. Thanks for joining us. Well, the first, we have two speakers here for the session here today. We are having two sessions, one on value-added products in the FMCG marketing side, especially on food, for the food processing side, food products, and the other is on fruits and vegetables commodity marketing. So for the first session, let me welcome Dr. Saikat Datta Mazumdar, who is the Chief Operating Officer of NutriPlus Knowledge Program of ICRISAT. Dr. Saikat studied chemistry between 1989 and 1992 at the Northeastern Hill University, Shillong, and was awarded the gold medal. This was followed by a master's degree in CFTRI, and later he went into the industry. I joined Unilever Research Center, worked there between 1998 to 2004, and he carried out R&D for Unilever's beverage and ice cream category. 2005, he moved to Germany as a scientific co-worker at the Institute of Pharmaceutical Chemistry, Philipps University of Marburg, where he was awarded the PhD degree by the university in 2008 for his work on surface plasmon resonance biosensor for rapid detection of Salmonella and Salmonella infections. He also has a specialization in food and agribusiness management from Cornell University. And in 2009, Dr. Saikat joined ICRISAT as a technical director for the NutriPlus Knowledge Program, and later he became the COO of the NutriPlus Knowledge Program here. So it's our pleasure to invite him. Sir, all over to you.
Thank you, John. Thank you for this introduction. And it's my pleasure and an opportunity for me to be talking here today. And I think not only to the audience here, but also online. I understand that we are connected to all the BPD units. So yesterday I was told that I should be talking something on value addition and what are the trends and strategies in terms of FMCG marketing. So I'll try to cover as much as possible. There would be some generic and some specific references, and the topic would be in general the food business trends and strategies. So if you look at the global food market, the global food and agricultural sector is estimated at around 5 trillion by the World Bank, and the global packaged food is estimated at around $2 trillion of business. And according to Euromonitor, the food service business is estimated around 1.9 trillion. And why are these numbers important? These are the numbers around which the future growth of the food processing industry will actually develop. So let us look at the trends. And what are the trends? The trends are in terms of demographic trends, socio-economic, geopolitical and technology, which will actually decide in which direction the food industry proceeds. Look at the demographic trends that determine the amount of type of food we consume, and these are as per the US Census. As we all are aware, the current world population is around 7.1 billion. There's one birth every 8 seconds and one death every 12 seconds. One international migration happens every 44 seconds. So there's a lot of movement of people around the world. And in terms of population, I think as we are all aware in these numbers, so there's a huge demand for food and different types of food, processed food, as well as staple food. And of course, quality and food safety would be some of the specific areas where the attention needs to be paid. South Central and Southeastern Asia, 3.6 billion, or half the world's population. And in Asia, it's around 4.4 billion. So that's where the type and the amount of food and the different need of food processing would actually be driven. Life expectancy is increasing and mortality at birth is decreasing. So again, there is the advancing age demographics, where a lot of old people with different food requirements, as well as the young population, which would require a different profile of food product to be developed and provided to them. Healthcare costs is another implication, and food and the type of food that we consume is what is going to decide how we move into this healthcare cost area, whether we can reduce that. Taste preferences are changing, and that's where your business will actually be driven by the consumer. The consumer would not compromise on taste, and along with that they also want the health and nutrition. Packaging is very critical for any product you develop. It's not only the packaging functionality in terms of its barrier properties, but what the packaging actually conveys to the consumer in terms of the benefits of the product. And of course, the resource constraints needs to be addressed. Social trends continue towards convenience and personalization of food products. Time pressure drive further needs for convenience. Well, again, as I was mentioning, the younger generation, they want to eat good, feel good, and ultimately look good. And that's where the food is another aspect which they look for in terms of delivering these requirements, as well as to rejuvenate their body, mind, and spirit. Eating away from home is increasing, as you are aware. All the food joints which are cropping up in the malls, in the movie halls, etc. And that's where, again, the demand is, of course, for convenience, but again, all these factors need to be incorporated in your food product and as part of your marketing strategy. The aging population, of course, the aging population is growing, but again, the aging population has higher disposable income. There are people who have worked hard, earned money, they have money, and now they want their share in terms of healthier lifestyle. Travel to faraway places and immigration. We do international travel every day, every week nowadays, and experimentation and experiences with new offerings. So people who go abroad come back and want to have the same sort of food here, the same offerings, and that's where there are new business opportunities in the food processing sector. Again, the internet, which brings in exposure and knowledge of different developments in the food sector, and there the consumer again demands that. Communications and marketing driven by social media, the internet, the Facebook, etc. And consumers seek personalization and participation in creating those products. So you have to engage with the consumer and understand what they require in order to succeed in your business. The consumers demanding move from profits to profits with purpose is again an important area of attention to be paid in the food business. Geopolitical climate will influence the future of food industry. What are these? Overconsumption and wastage by advanced economies, that's well known, but how can that be addressed? The BRICS countries and beyond are likely to exert influence on economic and social developments. Expanding affluent middle class, haves and have-not disparities will need addressing. Gourmet products from the haves, food preservation for the not-haves. So you need to preserve the food and provide it to the not-haves. Marketing and advertising and creating unfulfilled expectations. So you actually need to generate new expectation through your marketing and advertising. And global resources under pressure, which is the need for sustainability and other initiatives. Cross-border tensions as the population grow outstrips resources, and there we need to pay attention in order to leverage on the food processing sector. Continuing with the geopolitical, so there is food everywhere, as we have been discussing also yesterday, but yet millions die of hunger. And what is that? These numbers are known to all of us, but the bottom line is the need for preservation for the poor and the value added for the affluent. So that's where again the need for food processing in order to address the biggest issue of hunger and malnutrition. So what is that drives some of these innovations? It is the technology trend, favor the breadth of offerings, internet-driven taste, variety and global acceptance, mobility in manufacturing and consumption. Now there are robots which are and smart machines which are being introduced in the advanced countries, and that's changing the way the technology in terms of offering different food with different functional benefits. Scientific advances continue to create and accelerate food technology, formulation and manufacturing capabilities. Advances in health diagnostics will drive personalization of food. So as we understand the health, as we understand what an individual is suffering from or what an individual needs, we can actually then try to develop food products which are very tailored specific for the individual requirement. So that's where the new sort of food products targeting individuals and their requirements would be the next thing in the food processing industry. Manufacturing and preservation technologies provide great tasting, nutritional foods at the store. Taste and flavor understanding and technologies have made significant advances. So there's a lot more understanding in terms of taste and how to actually mimic certain tastes and flavor. And tailor-made individual nutritional technologies, which again is linked to this point here, which I was trying to highlight. Looking at the key opportunities from what we have discussed, it is basically the global age wave, both in the senior and as well as the younger generation. The health and wellness focus, which requires condition-specific foods, brick and beyond. Winning formula, which is to innovate new products and services. Superior operational efficiency and expansion in emerging markets, which means you need to really understand what are the demands and what are the needs of the emerging markets, and then translate them into your business opportunity. Tailor-made nutrition, and of course significant increase in mergers and acquisitions, which I will touch upon later. So again, just to highlight, health conscious consumers are actually driving the demand for healthy foods, and that is to promote wellness, increase lifespan, and prevent or manage chronic diseases. A number of factors are driving development of focused on wellness. Technological advances in communication. There are a lot of discussions in TV shows where the awareness of the consumers are growing in terms of what they should consume or what are the food products which can take care of certain of the health conditions. Knowledge in terms of travel and immigration. Demographics, healthcare costs, which we have already covered. Food laws are changing. We have our Food Safety and Standards Act, and this makes it now mandatory to have a lot of scientific validation of your products, and also it is now the responsibility of the producer to actually ensure that these laws are adhered to. So the food laws, advances in science and technology, and evidence linking diet to chronic diseases, these are all some of the other driving factors. Healthcare costs, as I have told you, the healthcare diets and habits could reduce costs by around $700 billion a year. There would be also productivity loss, which is linked to healthcare, disability, and premature death. So all these could be addressed by developing healthy foods and adopting healthier diets. Coming to specifics, and I think we have a lot of these understanding now in India. A lot of corporates, a lot of hospitals are actually now trying to understand that there is a need for these, but also there is a business opportunity in all these, what we call lifestyle diseases, understanding them, developing food products around them, and then also developing business ventures around them. Obesity, diabetes, heart health and hypertension, digestive health, cancer, cognitive and gluten intolerance are some of them. So obesity, it's a huge problem across the world. Around 200 million men and 300 million women are obese. Another 1 billion people are considered overweight. 50 million preschool children are overweight or obese, an increase of 60% in the past 20 years. In the US, it's a major problem, and 1/3 of its population is obese, and is projected to rise to 50% in 2030. So this being a challenge, this being a problem, but then this also is an opportunity for the food processing industry to develop low-calorie, filling foods such as fresh fruits and vegetables, complex carbohydrates and fibers. Using whole grains, you could actually develop products which could address obesity. So there's a huge opportunity in this. Nutrient-rich foods, to develop foods which provide a balance between protein, carbohydrates, and lipids. The food industry is clearly focused on offering food products in this space, and of course, that leads to significant opportunities in terms of food business. Diabetes, I think recently we had some query from of the one hospital in the country where they are already into trying to commercialize their formulations. So they already have the formulations, but they now look at it as an opportunity in terms of setting up a business around it. And diabetes, as you all know, is a chronic metabolic disease, and the food industry can make a good make good by doing good in this area. So the diabetic food products are good for consumers and good for the business also. Big and growing market segment, because the lifestyle diseases, and especially diabetes, is one of the major diseases. Healthcare costs are forcing focus on diabetes, changing trends, habits and behaviors of younger population. Impact of nutrition obvious to diabetics. They are aware that they have to have the right nutrition and they are looking for the right food. Regulatory environment is favorable, and of course older cultures have fundamental knowledge and competitive advantage. Like us in India, we have a lot of foods which we have been traditionally using, and that knowledge can be translated into commercial food products and business. And of course there is a high credibility among the target group, which means they readily are willing to accept these new food products. Another area is heart health and hypertension. So cardiovascular nutrition opportunity is very large. Significant advances in science have shown a promise, and diet and supplements have been well studied. So what is needed is to translate them into good business models and provide the right products to the consumer. And of course the opportunities are in the emerging markets and economies like us. Similarly, for digestive health, the incidence of poor digestive health increases with age, and these are some of the problems of indigestion, heartburn and irritable bowel syndrome. Food plays a strong role, and incidence can be minimized through formulations. A number of established companies are already in this race, like Danone, Unilever, Novartis and GSK, and of course with mergers and acquisitions, especially by these companies, small entrepreneurs, if they are able to establish a good business model around this, have a good opportunity. And of course in Asia we have well-known home therapies which can be translated into commercial products. Similarly, there is demand in terms of cancer and foods which can address or prevent cancer. Dietary modifications can help 30% of cancer incidence. Once cancer is diagnosed, nutritional support is necessary, and there is again an opportunity there. A healthy diet can help reduce the risk, and nutritional support for cancer patients is still at its infancy. So that's again a huge opportunity. Coming to cognitive requirements, which is to do with mental health, brain health. This is a new frontier in the area of health and nutrition. Dietary changes have been blamed to multiple cognitive problems such as ADHD. A number of food supplements and herbs in the market claiming benefits as concentration or memory improvement and stress reduction efficacy. Of course, the efficacies have not been well established. So that's where a product with good scientific backing needs to be developed and can be marketed. Excellent marketing opportunities for scientifically proven products. That's the key in this area. So we need to scientifically actually validate those products before you launch it in the market. Another area is gluten intolerance, which basically is characterized by what we call the celiac disease. Celiac disease is a digestive condition triggered by consumption of protein, gluten, which is mostly present in wheat. And of course, people with celiac disease who eat foods containing gluten experience an immune reaction in their small intestine, causing damage to the inner surface of the small intestine and an inability to absorb certain nutrients. This is a major problem, and of course, if it is left untreated, it leads to malnutrition, loss of calcium and bone density, lactose intolerance, cancer, and neurological complications. Given these problems, the only treatment which is recommended is to have a gluten-free diet. And of course, to stay well, people with these celiac disease must avoid gluten-free foods. So these are some of the foods which actually contribute gluten, and we need to actually look at products which are made from ingredients that are gluten-free. So these are some of the ingredients including millet and sorghum, and by looking at these ingredients we actually can also help the smallholder farmers who produce sorghum and millet and provide them a new opportunity, especially entrepreneurs who want to develop food products and food businesses around these new ingredients. So there's a lot of work which we are also doing here at ICRISAT to promote these gluten-free products. So additional opportunities are in the area of natural products, prepared ethnic foods. That's a huge demand, which has always been in demand in the West, but also now it has, in terms of getting them packaged and made available to the working class, there's a huge demand for these foods. Foods for immunity enhancement, skin and hair care through foods, and of course dietary supplements. Well, some of the lessons from success and failures which we can draw from the industry is health claims do sell products, but of course they must be backed by strong scientific evidence, especially with the new Food Safety and Standards Act in place. We no longer have the liberty to just label something and sell it without the scientific evidence in place. Great taste is a must. That's not only for the adult consumer, but especially for children. Children do not like to take food products which they do not find tasty. So you could have a very good product which delivers probably all the vitamins and micronutrients, but if it doesn't deliver taste, you will not be able to sell it. Marketers must understand the consumer behavior, not intentions, and of course previous learnings is key to product success and in the market. So part 2 in market success, identify the need and the relationship with the food, develop great tasting products, demonstrate safety, efficacy and affordability, very important, provide scientific support and credibility to the claims, clear, concisely communication of the consumer benefits, so consumers should be able to understand what your product wants to deliver, and it should not be complicated to understand, and build consumer trust, innovate and build new benefits. Well, again, for key barriers or failures, lack of true innovation. It has to be an innovative product, otherwise you will be again playing in the same arena with other players. Marketing, if you are missing the target group, you need to understand what is your target group and what they want. So if your product is developed based on this understanding right from the beginning, the rate of failure is reduced. Credibility, confusion of multiple promises, which of course are not there in the product, would actually lead to product failure. And what we call the AAA, acceptability, affordability and availability. These are very critical. You could launch a product, but then after 2 months it's not available anymore. So you're out of the market. Economics and convenience. Looking at what are the implications of these trends which we have discussed with respect to India. So we need to develop and market innovative products that deliver on emerging trends. We need to understand those trends and then work on them. Establish in emerging economies now. So if there are other economies which are emerging, can we go and establish ourselves there with what we have already established here? For example, the African continent, the huge opportunities, can we go and look into understanding them and establishing ourselves there? Focus on value-added ingredients and products. It is not the final product, but you should look at the entire value chain and what else is required to make the final product. So you need not be making the final product, but you could be a provider of some of these ingredients which go into making that product. Invest in flavor, taste, manufacturing and operational efficiency technologies. Need to understand the technologies, have the right technical people and right marketing people in place so that you have a good team in place who understands the entire process right from product concept to the consumer understanding and marketing. Build strong scientific support for claims and understand the value propositions and market to target group consumers. So I'm trying to link the trends to strategies. Well, again, as we have seen, globally food industry suffers from competitive convergence. So the competitions usually do not converge. That's very critical these days. The success lies in being the first to differentiate with compelling value. Understanding trends drive enterprises to be the first one to do so. Very critical, understanding the trends far enough ahead to create the impact. And understanding trends drive countries to be the first one to succeed in meeting the next generation needs of the sector and create global sector advantage. A few examples here. For example, if you look at here in Japan, they have been clearly able to identify the percentage of population over 65 is growing fast, and that's where they have been able to quickly react and actually get products in that category. So we have different categories here in the 40s to 50s who were born and the generation X, and we have the XX again. So aging more rapid in the OECD countries, and of course affluent as well as economic challenge, key traveler segment, a quarter of the world travelers. So these are some of the areas which the researchers can have to look into in providing, and this particular category of people who are growing old actually need safe food and nutritious food. So that's where research linked to understanding of the market is key. Researchers aim at meeting the aspirations of the eco-boomer. The world's young population demands food meeting multiple aspirations, and of course they have informed purchasing power. They know what they want to buy, so they will not buy something which they do not really understand and which does not deliver what they want to have. So again, around this, nutrition is the focus. Travel-driven food service. As they travel, they want the same quality of food, the same hygiene should be delivered, and of course they are influenced by their social network and peers. This is another important thing which is happening in India. If you look at this here, single living between age 24 and 30 is the highest in cities that are fast growing, especially in Bangalore, Mumbai, and of course outside in Singapore. And again, these have major implications for understanding what they need and then to be able to develop those products and make it available to them at an affordable cost. I'd like to highlight something, discuss something on the challenge of segmentation and differentiation. The competitive landscape is actually no longer among peers, but between segments that were actually competitive forces. That's what we are talking about, competitive convergence. For example, if you look at the ready-to-eat food segment, they are now trying to provide restaurant quality food, which is processed food. The new innovation is processed food combining taste, color, texture, shelf life, and nutritional parameters. And of course, that creates a threat factor for the food service sector. So if I am able to pick up a combo which I can take home and put it in a microwave and heat it and I get restaurant quality food, that actually creates a threat for the restaurant industry. Another area where we have seen a lot of innovations, this is a brand which is very popular in US, and this is actually Pani Puri in blister pack. So at present you see Pani Puri being sold on the roadsides, and what this provides is it provides you the same ethnic taste, but then also in addition you have the quality and the hygiene. And it's very simple, but then it delivers what the consumer wants, hygiene, quality, and of course without compromising on the taste. So, and some of the food brands would actually feel the competition from this. A look at the potable water segment, which focuses on functionality in the Western markets, and this is what is again coming into India. So there's a category of still water, $110 billion US. Then you have the carbonated bottled water segment, predominantly in the Western and European markets. Then you have the flavored bottled water segment, which is largely led by the Latin American growth, and then you have functional bottled water which delivers things like vitamin, etc. So you see just simple water, and but then they've been able to identify different segments, different needs, and then you have this whole category based on only water. So this is where we actually even need to look in our country what we can do, maybe not in water but also in other segments. Food service sector innovators are trying not to lag behind with these challenges. They're adopting safe and healthful ingredients, innovations in meeting consumer preferences, that's what they're doing. Innovations in delivery system, can we deliver it fresh, can we deliver it warm, can we have different packaging options where you can quickly heat it up in the microwave. Innovations in minimally processed ingredients, which means you do not have to do much processing at your kitchen. So it comes packed and you just maybe add it. Fusion foods, Chinese, Indian or Italian, Indian. So that's what is again coming in. Global food service giants have gained enormous size and are one of the largest investors in sponsored research currently. So they're actually investing in research to understand consumer behavior, consumer perception, taste preferences, etc., in order to really find innovations and add innovations in their business. The food service sector is one of the fastest growing subsector in the food industry in the emerging markets, and this is validated by real numbers. If we look at China, food service sector surpasses $200 billion US. Yum, which is in China from Pizza Hut, KFC and Eastong, is actually 7.6 billion in 2012. Top 3 global food chains expect their Chinese revenue to reach a third of the global revenue in 10 years. So this is the sort of potential which is there in the food service sector, especially in the emerging economies. And our own local story tells it again. McDonald's in India, there are currently around 350 outlets, and maybe as we speak some more have been added. Cumulative investment have been $350 million US, serves 15 million customers a month. They have had new SKUs added. For example, Mac Maharaja is something which is from India, it is for India, and that is doing very well for McDonald's. It took them 6 years to break even. That's, I think, a good achievement. And international firms with Indian flavor, like the Mac Maharaja, has actually been driving their business. And aspirational positioning in India. If you look at the children and their parents, most of them now like to associate themselves with McDonald's. They want to organize birthday parties at McDonald's. So this has been a success story in the service sector in India. Now coming to another model which has been doing very well, and that is the franchising, the fastest, and it is one of the fastest growth model, which again McDonald's is an example of, and similarly KFC. Food service sector has perfected the franchise model. Key brands have stretched to 70 to 80% of franchise options. Investors prefer growth-driven markets for the franchise opportunity, and the quick way to grow in emerging markets is probably through the franchising opportunity, and ethnic brands learn to franchise globally. So that's been another learning. Just to give you an example, what is the food service market in the US? US has around 950,000 restaurants, one for every 320 Americans. This is considered excess capacity, and over the next 5 years, it may stay at 1 for every 350 Americans, but they have already reached the peak. And innovation will be the only driver now to take their business forward and give them a competitive edge in this environment. Looking at other ways where you actually can link to your customers. If you look at Starbucks, they have something called the Starbucks Rewards, and about 5 million members to date, and 50% in the gold category. So these are some of the marketing strategies which are being adopted in the food service sector, and people also like to associate themselves, being it is probably considered to be an elite sort of thing to be associated and be a Starbucks member. Food service ventures depend on social media even more. And of course, you can find a lot of mobile apps. In fact, I think a few days back I got an SMS saying Domino's now has a mobile app where you actually can place your order right from your smartphone. So this itself gives a different experience and a feeling, and of course it also achieves the marketing requirements of the company. Looking at catering, food retailers, branded foods have now converged here, and actually you see also branding in the catering business. This is what I just shot at the airport. I think it was the New York airport, and I think we also have these now. So basically competition is actually driving, and this is actually a coffee vending machine which actually you can put a coin in there and you can have your cup of coffee warm. So these are some of the things which are innovations which are getting into marketing of food products. Looking at again health and hygiene, this is one of the most worrisome issue, whether you are in a vending machine or you're in a restaurant. This will always be an issue and a concern, and this will affect your marketing, this will affect your business. So you have to be very careful there, and the most concern for hygiene triggers standards and brings in higher brand recognition for sure. So some people associate with certain brands because they have this feeling that, okay, this brand will actually ensure hygiene and quality standards. Foodborne disease concerns, regulators get stringent and strong compulsions for self-regulation. Self-regulation is another critical. Threat from global food movement, that's across the globe. There is now food products moving from one part of the globe to the other. There is a surge in global food trade, and 25% of the global food production moves across the world. As food travels, so too the diseases associated with that, and that enhances the risk. Developed countries turn as key food importers, posing challenges in market access, and the highest complaints to World WTO emanate from Europe and US currently. Harmonization of global food regulations, overcoming intentional and unintentional food contamination is a challenge, and every manufacturer has to be aware of this and ensure that they are able to meet these challenges. Global food products place researchers under very serious pressure to redefine epidemiological surveillance and food safety assessment parameters. Food safety concerns, in fact, have triggered innovation in the food sector, and these are some of the categories which actually developed, or some of the products which actually were innovated because of food safety concerns. One is, of course, potable water. Now we actually have it every day. We do not think of a bottle of Bisleri or any other product, and it's become a part of our daily life now. Frozen, cut, canned, and fruits and vegetables is another category, and of course frozen meat products, and of course we have a lot of frozen vegetarian products which are actually also exported from our country, like samosas, etc. What about the business in terms of getting business out of these new products? If you look at the potable water market, which actually came from the requirement of health and hygiene, Asia Pacific has around 57.3 million liters of consumption of potable water, and you have the other numbers here, and of course Western Europe is at 56.6, North America 33.5 million liters. So this is a huge market which is already in place. Nutrition drives the growth in the beverage business also. Three distinct segments have emerged outside the cola segment. One is refrigerated yogurt drinks and juice, fruit and smoothies, ready to drink tea and coffee, and of course energy drinks and shots, sports drinks, and nutrient enhanced water, around $15 billion category. This is some data from the Euromonitor analysis, and this is on the Asian market. Juice and drinks up to 24% juice. Asia leads the way. If you look here, this is Asia Pacific with the regional juice drinks consumption for 2007 to 2012. So 2012, you see the number, it's very high here. There are certain changes in terms of how people are actually perceiving carbonated drinks, and again there is an opportunity for any business. If you look at, this is from the US market, The regular cola, which is the carbonated cola, is actually shown a negative here, and of course you see other non-cola drinks have shown an increase in their consumption. This is for, and these are some of the projections for 2011 to 2016. So, coming to concern for health and nutrition, what does it mean? Companies invent and reposition products taking care of consumer concerns for health. So it is actually pushing some of these companies like Coke, etc., and this will also affect the small manufacturers. As the concern for health and nutrition increases, you have to actually invest and invent and reposition yourself. So if your consumers no longer want carbonated beverage, what do? You have to understand and move away and provide new formulations and products and new drinks probably, so that they are still able to associate with the brand, but again you need to take care of their requirements in terms of the health and nutrition. Campaigns, the campaigns such as PepsiCo, Better For You, they actually went for a campaign called Better For You. Focus on products, natural formulation and functional benefits, less on carbohydrate and more on protein. So that could be a way out. A wave of health-based beverages, get on the anvil, lowering focus on carbonated beverages, rationalizing serving sizes. So if you are actually consuming maybe 250 ml, you could actually tell do not consume 250 but you consume less. That's another way of tackling this problem. And reaching nutrition to 1+ billion population who are malnourished. So that's another challenge. So the big transnational ingredient sector, this is a huge business which is in place. Global supply of ingredients multiply manifold, triggering research and technology adaptation for self-stable, multicultural centric ingredients, processing and ready to eat foods, which means there are a lot of ingredients which are moving globally across the world. Several countries succeed in minimal processing technologies for global market reach. US and most part of Europe tend to move away from ingredient manufacturing. They do not want to manufacture ingredients anymore. They source the ingredients which are used in their products, and they currently import ingredients estimated around $300 billion, which means countries like India have huge opportunity to be part of this ingredient market, which is actually there. Countries such as China, Thailand, Philippines, Chile and Mexico have already shown the world how to apply technologies for minimum value addition and self-stable bulk ingredient production. So they do minimal processing, bring it to a stage where it can be bulk packed and shipped to US and Europe. So this is an example here, very simple, but needs to be done in a proper way with ensuring the proper quality, the standards, etc. So, for example, you take fresh tomatoes, you have the simple peeling, sun drying and then puree. So this could be your minimally processed ingredient which is then shipped out. But then the key is the quality and the standards in terms of pesticide residues, microbiology, etc., which of course we are facing challenges, and there is a huge problem in terms of lot of export rejections presently for our products, especially in Europe and the US. Another important segment, this is ethnic, ready to cook and ready to eat, dominate the global retail opportunity. Ethnic food in non-ethnic markets is largely addressed by local makers, then from makers from their origin of ethnic food. For Indian ethnic foods, some of these companies are very well known in the US markets, and of course judicious convergence of ethnic food to the local food habits and packaging forms, and superior disclosures and judicious price points are critical in sort of being able to market this product. Another important area which needs to be looked into in terms of your business is integrated investment in farm and food research. Category of foods at retail end drive the preferences from farm products and influence the farm product research. So what actually retails actually decides what the farm is going to do. So there has to be a link between the research which goes on at the R&D of a retail or a FMCG and what the farm is going to produce. Countries pursuing isolated farm product research tend to lose out in linking their products to the markets. So this is very key in the success of your business. You need to understand how to link your farm produce to your end product. And of course, if you look at these numbers here, research in emerging economies increasing but not adequate. So US is presently investing around $18 billion, China 1.6, and India, here we are less than 200 million, both combined in the public and private. And this is where your innovations will come from, and of course innovations supported by business incubation, etc., would actually help in taking us to the opportunities and leveraging the opportunities in the food sector. A look at the industry consolidation, which is imminent, and there are three ways: are organic growth, inorganic growth, and consolidating through strategic linkages. I'll quickly highlight on this. So organic growth could be new products and markets, greenfield and brownfield projects, expansion in food service sector, segment expansion, and of course geographical spread to synergic markets. That is how traditionally it has been. But then recently we have been seeing a lot of consolidation through inorganic growth, and of course interesting alliances and acquisition targets. High quality products from young innovative entrepreneurs are being picked up by the FMCGs and the multinationals. So this is where I think a lot of opportunities. Product delivery innovators, interest of large brands to acquire private label leaders. So if you are able to build a good private label, there is a good chance that you in the long run, if you want to, you could actually sell it to a larger brand. Food brands increasing entry into the food service sector. Food service industries increasing addition of food brands in their product range. So this gives you a lot of opportunity to actually innovate and link to these food service industry. Food manufacturer and retailer alliances. This is happening a lot. So food manufacturers and retailers are trying to work together. So I think I've tried to cover as much as possible, and now I'd just like to conclude and summarize. So in conclusion, emerging markets, as we have seen, like India and China, will provide future growth, opportunity for global corporations. Domestic industry innovation will be triggered by competitive forces. Health, hygiene and diversity of food will drive the product focus that we have clearly, I think, understood and discussed. Technology drivers will bring more functionality to food products, as we seen in case of maybe products for diabetics or obesity or your gut health, etc. There could be new formats and delivery systems, new ways of serving the food, new ways of dispensing the food because of calorie consciousness, etc. Smaller serves, private labels we have discussed, ethnic categories will continue to influence the markets. Regulatory stringency will drive further disclosures, so you have to be open, you have to actually validate, you have actually to provide scientific data so that you actually comply to the regulatory requirements. Foodborne diseases will be a constant factor to watch due to movement of food across the globe, and competitive forces will keep innovation reach higher levels that we have already seen. If you have competitive advantage, you are bound to lose it unless you innovate continuously. So with this, I come to the end of this, and some of these slides actually I have also used from some of the presentations I've attended at Cornell, and also some of these from Sadhguru. So I have to acknowledge them, and thank you all, and I would like to take any questions which are there. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We're getting some questions in, but before we take some questions, anything from the group here? Okay. So I got a question here from JNKVB Jabalpur,
Yeah.
who is asking about how the food subsidy bill is going to drive or impact the functional food market in India.
The food subsidy or the food security?
The food subsidy bill.
Food subsidy bill.
It must be the
Food
security.
security bill, yeah.
Should be security bill.
Yeah, I think the food security bill also looks into providing millet and other coarse grains. And as we are all aware that these grains are actually having good functional properties. So in that way, we are actually directly addressing the functional needs of a larger population. Yeah. So that way it is there, but again, as I have been highlighting, that there is a growing awareness of the health benefits of the coarse cereals and grains among the processing industry, and we at ICRISAT are also working closely with a number of the food industry majors, and we hope that there will be a good amount of functional food which will come into the market based on local ingredients. And of course, that once we do use local ingredients, they would be probably more affordable.
Hello. Could you throw some light on worldwide bamboo shoots are becoming very popular food? Supposed to be very healthy. You have any data on that, sir?
Right now, I don't think I'll be able to provide any data, but for sure, bamboo shoot has been very popular, especially I think among the Oriental, especially in China and Japan. And in India, if you look at the northeast, there are a lot of formulations and recipes which use bamboo shoots. So I think there's a huge opportunity there. And as we are looking at other coarse cereals and new ingredients, I think this also would be exploited, given that the health benefits are already established. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the group here? Because we are getting a question in from Anand. They're still typing. Just hold on, sir.
We can
Oh,
take
it's
question
there.
from here.
The question is, on one side we are into promotion of small startups.
Yeah.
On the other side we have biggies like Nestle, Danone, Yakult, Amul.
Yeah.
How the two can survive together in the same market?
Well, even today, if you look at how the multinationals operate, and I have been also with Levers for more than 10 years, so most of these multinationals do not work in isolation, and the strategy which I have seen is that they actually engage a lot of third-party units, third-party converters, which they actually develop, provide support in terms of putting the food quality management systems in place. And as I was telling, that if you are able to have a good private label, a good private brand, and it sort of synergizes well with the big names, so there's also an opportunity. So I think the big players and the small players, there is a
coexist.
synergy in place, and they will coexist.
And they can coexist.
They will have to.
It's not a question, it's just a request. This particular presentation, do you have a detailed write-up or a book on that one, if it is available for?
Well, this has
public
been
domain?
collated, as I told you, from different things, so
Okay.
yeah,
So
I
there's
can
no
give you the references.
Single
Yeah.
publication is not there.
No, it is not. So it is just a collation of different data and different things.
It
which
was
has
very
been-
detailed actually.
We got one more question coming in, sir. In fact, just any feedbacks from the group to the presenter? Can be a question, can be anything related to the, yeah. Okay. So we talked about, this is from BPD SIFA,
Yeah,
Central Institute of Freshwater Aquaculture. You talked about frozen meat. What about frozen fish?
Well, I
Tax implication in export and local market.
well, I don't think I'll be able to comment on the tax implications, etc. But of course, if you look at the frozen marine products, that has always been a big revenue earner for our country. So I think that falls in the same category as frozen foods or frozen. Yeah,
Still got a couple of more coming.
more questions.
BPDs are very active this time.
Good.
For the record, we got 11 BPDs as of now online. So, much better. Sure.
Yes, sir.
Far away, sir.
Sir, lot of people recommending that the urban gardening should be improved. Growing vegetable in the urban locations. What is your opinion on that? Is that feasible or just a propaganda?
Well, in terms of work which is being done, in terms of promoting urban gardens, and if you look at ICRISAT once, maybe John can take you around, there's a lot of work which is being done by the World Vegetable Center here, and there are models of urban garden and what you can grow. So I think as there's a lot of work which is happening, it's only a matter of sort of taking it up and translating it. So it is feasible, and yeah, it is. And I think, John, you can show that World Vegetable Center. Yeah.
Yeah. And Dr. Maida is our client anyway, so we will
Yeah.
definitely have more time sharing the day. So I got a question from IVRA, which is on what are the different food regulatory mechanisms adopted by Government of India in meat and milk products in terms of contaminants and heavy metals?
Well, now everything, all the different food which we had in terms of PF and meat products order and milk products order, now all have been come under the Food Safety and Standards Act. So it is FSSAI, and if you go to FSSAI website, everything is available there. So now we have one consolidated law, which is the Food Safety and Standards Act, and it is Food Safety and Standards Act, and everything is available online at the FSSAI website.
Okay,
Does
I
that
think-
answer the question?
Yeah. Because the Act has consolidated all the other.
Absolutely, everything has been consolidated, and if you go to FSSAI website, everything is available.
And if you go to,
Any further requirement, I can also interact
yeah.
over the email or something I
Yeah,
can provide.
and for the record, we also came out with a publication for food startups,
Yeah,
so which actually details how the process
yeah, and we have also a section in that,
in that, yeah, on legal parts.
which
So-
how to sort of access the Food Safety and Standards Act, how to start a food business. So all the links have been provided there.
Okay, he wants to know about the mandatory tests that are required.
For
Huh?
what?
The same testing, contaminants and heavy metals.
Heavy metals.
What are the mandatory tests that are required?
Well, I think it would be better to refer to the FSSAI regulations. It details, especially product-wise, product category-wise, everything is provided there. So it depends on what product he's talking about. Yeah, so everything is detailed, and what are the limits is provided, what should be the limit, everything is provided. In fact, also the test methods are also provided there. Yeah, so if you want, we can also send it to you. So it's all regulated by the Food Safety and Standards Act.
Okay, sir. Right. I think that's about it for time for the for
Right.
this session. The question that we have. So move on to the next session.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for kind attention. Thank you. Thank you.